Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. This is a public interest program by Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. I'm Renee Dietrich, the moderator and a member of the League. On May 17th, our primary election is coming up, and because of redistricting following the census, there are new districts and many candidates. The primary election is when the main political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, choose their candidates. And you must be registered to vote as a Republican or Democrat to choose your party's candidate. And the deadline to register is May the 2nd. We are interviewing candidates for contested races. That means a contest within each party. Candidates will get the same basic questions and have the same amount of time to answer them. 4 Republicans are competing in the 6th Congressional District: Guy Shiraki, Steve Finelli, Regina Morrow, and Ron Vogel. The winner will compete with Democrat Christy Houlihan in the fall. The district is in the southern section of Berks County, including the city of Reading, and goes all the way down to New Morgan. The House of Representatives proposes and passes federal laws which must be also approved by the U.S. Senate. They act on domestic and international issues. Members of the House serve 2-year terms and earn $174,000 a year plus benefits and expenses. Now please note that the opinions expressed in this interview are those of the candidate and not the opinions of the League or Berks Community Television. This interview is with Steve Finelli. Welcome.
Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. Please tell the viewers about yourself and why you're running for this office.
Thank you for having me this morning. My name is Steve Finelli. I was born in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, raised in Delaware County, graduated from Villanova University, and started a small company in Malvern, Pennsylvania in the 80s. Met my beautiful wife in Chester County in this district and raised 3 children here. My company was very, very successful, operating in 5 states in the northeastern region, and I retired from everything in 2015. At that point, I started paying closer attention to politics. For the good or the bad of that, after the 2020 election, I decided it was time for me to serve this district. The district has given back to me over decades in business life and community service, and it's my turn to give back to this district. So that's basically why I'm here today, Renee, with your great people.
Well, tell us, what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I feel that in Washington, D.C. these today, there are not enough people that have the how-to because they had to. And what that means is when you have a small company for decades and you have dozens of employees that require your abilities every single day and every week and every month and every year, you have to have the how-to make a payroll. And if you have the had-to build infrastructure, you know how to build infrastructure, which is the how-to. There's other facets of my successful career that we bring to the how-to that politicians in Washington don't have. Too many people are making the laws for this district that don't know the how-to because they never had to. They're basically there collecting a paycheck and a pension, and that's their goal, and that's what they're there to do. My service to give back to this community will hopefully bring common sense, balanced budget, reading bills before they're presented to Congress, and that's my goal and that's my aim.
Okay. Let's talk about international things for a minute. As we have this interview, there's a war on in Ukraine.
Yes.
Americans want to help democracies and to prevent takeovers by autocrats, but they're concerned military help could trigger a nuclear war.
Yeah.
What do you think our nation can do and cannot do in such situations?
Well, one of the things the nation shouldn't do is decrease our defense spending. That's a signal to saber rattlers around the world like Putin, Xi, North Korea's Kim. When we decide to cut back on military and not pronounce ourselves as a strong nation, these saber rattlers, like those gentlemen, are more likely to do what they're doing. North Korea has been sending missiles into the China Sea. Putin, obviously, with Ukraine, a sad situation. I feel that could have been a little bit avoided had we had a leader in this country that presented himself in a stronger manner prior to all of this. So that your international policy, defense policy, is one of the best deterrents to people like Putin and Xi and Kim and Iran's Ayatollah and the Taliban and the ISIS and all these folks. We were in a very peaceful situation 3-4 years ago, and now we're in a mess, and that's how I feel.
Should we work with allies in international affairs, or should we go it alone?
We should work with allies. Having allies put up as much as we're putting up with blood and treasure is always an important ingredient in world peace. I'm not a proponent of putting boots on the ground anywhere in the world in conflict. Having my father that served in the military and other family members involved in the military, I think the best thing is to have might in amongst the allies and the United States, and that keeps the bad guys in check.
Okay, thank you. Berks County is 50% agricultural, and we know that growing seasons have changed. Storms are more destructive. There are hurricanes, there are floods, there are more of them. What should the federal government do to keep the planet more habitable?
I'm not sure the federal government can solve any of our problems at this point, Renee. Without farms, we have no food. My business life was related to farmers in many, many aspects, and I have close friends that are in the farming industry. Agricultural products and agriculture itself is a key ingredient to the livelihoods of everyone in the world. Farmers are not only losing to the climate, farmers are losing to conservation groups, they're losing to sprawl development, and they're losing to commercial development. There should be programs for the federal government that help farmers with attaining land that stays farmland, which is helping the landowners be able to afford to do that. When a developer comes in and offers over market value for the land, it's hard for them to say, no, I want to keep farming it and renting it to the farmer. So our environment, I'm an environmentalist, so to speak. I am a boat captain. I'm also a hunter, been fishing all my life. Our environment needs to be pristine, but there are ways to do that without pushing us into electric vehicles overnight and cutting out industries such as natural gas, cutting out nuclear power. That's the safest and most efficient form of power. So all of these things brought together with clean energy, keeping the farmers in check, in place, I believe is what should be represented in Washington.
How does climate change affect national security, or does it?
I'm not so sure it does. It's been a talking point of the left. Climate change is obviously there's some climate change going on, but climate change has been since the beginning of time. If you do research and look back at some of the hottest temperatures in the 1800s, the coldest temperatures like we're having today, were also, I think we broke an 1836 record today because it was overnight 20 degrees in Pennsylvania. These ups and downs and swings of climate have been going on since the beginning of time.
Okay, so the federal government shouldn't really, or how should they deal with like carbon emissions and all that stuff?
Well, you saw that President Obama imposed the strictest carbon emissions on vehicles up to 2035. That's a start, but then again, does anybody look at the trucking industry and what it did in California? The diesel emissions that the truckers in California are facing is prohibitive, and a lot of trucks won't go into California to the ports on the West Coast. So there's got to be a common sense middle ground, which we have this divisive politics that we have on the left and on the right, and no one says, hey, think about the truckers, think about carbon emissions, think about what that's costing them, and then the cost of goods goes up. If it's costing more for the truckers to bring us food because of these prohibitive regulations, well, then that gets to the consumer, and it doesn't hit the rich consumer. It hits the middle class and hits the lower middle class the hardest.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, during the pandemic, women were hugely impacted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
lack of childcare is said to be a factor.
Yep.
What will you advocate for in Congress to help women navigate their dual role as mothers or wives and so forth, and employees?
Well, my wife, working mom, when the pandemic hit, she was home, working from home. I think one of the greatest things that we, with our friends and their children, was that the daycare facilities were closing left and right, and they weren't allowing children into the daycare facility. So there, the moms were at home trying to, if you did a Zoom call, you heard in the background the dog barking and the child screaming, and everyone experienced that. I know they did because we certainly did. So getting daycare facilities back open, getting moms that can go back into the office, and this country shut down. The children were the least likely to have an impact, percentages-wise, if we're using Dr. Fauci's science, the least likely impacted by this pandemic. Yet they were the most affected by the pandemic in their building their relationships, in their social environments, in their learning. And then how about the moms that were burdened with children at home for extended periods of time when they couldn't work? So legislation for me was, the lockdowns didn't work for me. I disagreed with locking down this country. I disagreed with mandates. I was subject to getting the vaccination because of pre-existing condition, and 5 months later I ended up in the hospital with COVID. So regulation is not part of my platform. I think that let this country flow, let this country go.
Okay, now equal pay for equal work is an issue, but it's still a myth. And you mentioned childcare, which is very expensive.
Yes.
So how can you sort of bring these two things together, that women could earn income more in parity with men, so they could really afford childcare?
Well, I think income equality for women has grown to a closer, the gap is closing consistently. If women are paid as much as men, which they, in this world, it's getting closer and closer. It's still not there yet. We all can agree on that. Then the childcare is affordable. When you're talking about childcare, it's a dual, is dad working too? So consider, do both parents working? And as the income, it's a little more affordable for the child to be in a daycare. But there's a lot of moms that can't afford daycare at this current, in this country right now. How does an employer help? Well, we helped our employees with a lot of different things, with their medical, with their disability, with childcare, and it does go to the responsibility of the company. If you have a star employee and she is a woman and you want her in that workplace, well, then you have to pick up a little bit of the tab to help her with her childcare. And that's part of the package that these companies can offer to people to incentivize them, because right now, you know, we have a labor shortage. If you reach out to any business, no matter what facet of this economy, there's a labor shortage from head to toe, in contracting to services, police. Every facet of our economy is short workers right now. So let's incentivize those businesses to help with childcare, because they're going to profit because they have a better employee in there.
And would you extend that to elder care also?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's shift here. The preamble to our national constitution says, "We unite to promote the general welfare and to secure the blessings of liberty." Now, if we look at those two ideals as sort of opposite ends of a continuum, individual liberties on one end and community welfare on another, where do you see yourself on that line?
I see myself as a non-politician. I see myself as someone that experienced life with regulation. I see with the lockdowns, with the mandates. I see myself in the middle. If you want to follow something, follow it. If you want to follow science, follow science. If you want to wear the mask, wear the mask. If you don't want to have your children attend, you had the option to either attend school or attend via Zoom. It shouldn't be that our Constitution was disrespected. If we are, as the Constitution states, we are all under equal rights, well, then the government doesn't have the right to tell me you're doing this, okay? So in my world, as a middle ground Reagan conservative, I think that we should be following our Constitution, which says if I don't have to follow that as long as I stay within the bounds of the law. the mandates, like I said, the lockdowns, and they just don't agree with my candidacy.
What about social media and regulation of free speech on social media?
Social media is a problem in this country. My daughter, not so much my oldest son who's getting out of college, and my son leaving high school and my young daughter going into high school, they're in their phones all day. And what they're getting on those phones is not what this country should be feeding young kids right now. Social media should be regulated. I do agree, you know, every other business is regulated in some way, shape, or form. There's too much on the internet for young kids to view without parental supervision. It's hard to be a parent and know exactly what your 14-year-old daughter is looking at all day long when these phones, these contraptions that we need in our society, obviously, they're not reined in any way, shape, or form. The fact that these social media companies contribute to campaigns, obviously opposite of the Republican side of the campaign, is another thing. I believe Zuckerberg gave $400 million to the Democratic Party in the last election. It's just not, it's not what this country, how we were founded.
So you favor regulation?
I do, well, of not overburdening regulation, but that open marketplace regulation where there have to be some constraints for who's viewing, how they're viewing. This is, my 14-year-old daughter can take her iPhone and look up just about anything under the sun. And that to me is not a good thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, we're coming toward the end of our program, so would you like to make a closing statement?
Well, I would like to let everyone know that there are other candidates in this race. They're good people. Everyone that puts their lives on hold to do something like this, especially coming out of private sector. The Constitution that was founded, the Founding Fathers wanted us to serve in our private life successfully or not successfully, and then give to your public service. You weren't there to be a perpetual employee of the government. You were there to come, serve, and then relinquish your post. My candidacy is based on that principle. My how-to knowledge, because I had to, is what I take into Washington. My decades of community service with thousands of children in my community, growing youth programs and mentoring. I'm still coaching CYO and I'm coaching club lacrosse to this day. That will end if I'm elected. But the Founding Fathers wanted me to be successful in my private life and then give back in my public life. It's upside down now. What we have is career politicians that want the paycheck, they want the graft from all of the people that they make relationships with, and that's their set retirement. Where my retirement is already set. I'm coming out of retirement to do a service and then get back to that retirement. I want to go fishing again. I gave it up to come here last year, and I want to get back to that someday. Okay.
With clean streams.
Yes, with clean streams and clean oceans, because I'm a captain in the ocean. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee.
Now, if you are not sure of your voting status, go to votepa.gov. You can register to vote, change your party, locate your polling place, or apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. Then check the League's online voting guide, vote411.org, to confirm your district and get more information on the candidates. If you still have election questions, Berks County's election services will help you. You can email them at elections@countyofberks.com or phone them at 610-478-6490. And for information about your new districts and all voting issues, do watch the League of Women Voters Presents Ready, Set, Vote on BCTV beginning April 12th. And thank you for watching the candidates up front. Good day.